The start of the story takes place in Seoul in the year 2021. A group of students are seen cornering one of their fellow students, Do Yeeman, who is a studious young man. However, Yeeman is not one to be easily frightened, and he calmly asks the bullies what they want. The bullies try to intimidate him with their aggressive behavior, but Yeeman remains unbothered and states that they are wasting their time as he is already late for school and needs to go. Yeeman then walks away from the bullies, leaving their leader angry and frustrated. As Yeeman is walking away, the bully leader becomes even more furious and attacks him. However, Yeeman is prepared for this and closes his book which he was reading and kicks the bully to the ground. Yeeman tells the bully that he does not have time for his stupid games and that he already has a hard life and does not need any additional burden. However, Yeeman did not realize that there was another boy behind him, who had a baseball bat. He hits Yeeman on the head, causing him to bleed and become injured. The bully then gets up and says that Yeeman deserves punishment for butting in on their matter. Yeeman becomes angry and curses at the bully, which only makes him angrier. The bully then tells his friends to beat Yeeman and they start kicking him. Suddenly, a strange thing happens. Small bubbles of purple lights begin to float and increase in number, covering everything. Then there is a bright flash, and everyone is shocked and confused about what is happening. Despite the confusion, everyone's attention is drawn to a man who is near the bully leader. The man tells the bullies that nothing has changed in the last 20 years, and that they were still wearing the same uniform as he used to. The bullies are confused by the strange man who is wearing strange clothes, and they think that he may be a senior from their school. The man tells them to stop fighting and to not hurt Yeeman because he was there. But the leader of the bullies does not care if the man in front of them was an upperclassman and telling them to stop. He calls the strange man a hobo and tells him that he could be lying as well. But he does not care even if a teacher comes here, and he would do what he wants with Yeeman. He pokes the man claiming to be his senior and puts his finger on his chest. The bully tells him that it was not his business to interfere here, and if he tried to step in where it was not required, he would be beaten by his juniors. Surely that would be a humiliating thing for them, and if he did not want to suffer that humiliation, he should run away right now. The man seems to mind it, but then he quickly controls his annoyance. He says that the kids nowadays had no manners and did not how to behave with their seniors. He is quite easygoing and dismisses the bully's aggression as a typical teenage behavior, and tells them that he was also rowdy back in his days, but he respected elders. The leader of the bullies thinks that the man was no big deal and irritates him further. He puts his fist against the senior's chest and insults him, calling him a crazy man. It seems that is the limit for the senior, and he gets angry at the rude junior. He catches his hand that he had placed on his chest and says that if he made him more annoyed, he would crush his hand. The bully frees away his hand and decides to punch the man, but even though he used his full power, his punch did not connect. It went past where the man was and hit just the air. The man had vanished. The bully finds that the senior was already standing behind him when he says that it was a poor punch. The bully is shocked at the great speed he moved with, and the senior says that he was taking things too far. He was overconfident in his abilities, but he was still a kid. The man is not going to show him something so scary that he will be on the straight and narrow for a long time. He raises one hand and starts chanting some words in a strange and unknown language. He looks serious and the other students are watching him intently. Then the man snaps his fingers, but the thing he wanted to happen does not happen. He looks dumb and confused now, and so does everyone else at the place. But he is the most confused of all and snaps his fingers again and again. When the bullies ask him what he was trying to do, the man replies that he was trying to summon his familiars. But somehow, his magic was not materializing. The leader of the bullies is furious at this point. He says that today was a terrible day for his mental health. First, the student named Yeeman stood up to them in class, and now he had to deal with an idiot. But this time, the senior does not care about the insults and keeps on snapping his fingers like a madman, trying to make adjustments so that his magic materialized. But when nothing happens, he gives up on using magic to scare the kids and decides to go the other way. He says that he did not need magic to teach a lesson to a few kids anyways. He casually approaches the leader of the bullies with an outstretched hand and flicks his forehead with a finger. That simple act is a powerful attack as the boy is sent flying and hits the wall behind him. Everyone is shocked on seeing that, and the man says that it was the turn of other bullies now. He does the same with everyone and they all get knocked out without the chance to do anything. The man calls himself Kang Woojin as he introduces himself to Yeeman. Yeeman is impressed by his strength, but the man was still acting like a crazy man. He asks Yeeman about the date and year and is shocked when he finds out that it was just 2021. He had been summoned to another world in 2016 and 20 years had passed since then. Thus he was thinking that the year on Earth would be 2036. But then he thinks that it was only a gap of 5 years, and that was much better as the world would have not changed so much that he lost his place in it. Woojin tells Yeman that he was going home and tells him to not fear bullies. But as he snaps his fingers again while shouting teleport, nothing happens. But then he remembers that he cannot do magic, and says that it must be because of some errors during moving across dimensions. The only way he can reach home is to take a bus or a train, and he has no money. He approaches Yeman without hesitation and asks him to lend him 2001. Yeman was already thinking that the man was too weird and crazy, and he does not have an option but to lend him the money. Yeman lent Woojin a 5001 bill, and he is happy to get more than what he asked for. He is thinking that he would repay the nice boy someday while he is going home. He thinks that only 5 years had passed. That meant his family will not have forgotten him. His parents and little sister would be so happy to see him again. As he is walking, he spots something that looks out of place to him. The military is standing in front of the subway entrance, and they are fully armed and alert. Woojin does not understand what it means and asks 2 office workers passing by about the military in front of a subway. The girls look at him and then at each other and start laughing, saying that how could he not know it. They call him an old man and ask if he was from an isolated part of the world. As they laugh, they tell him that it was obvious that military would be guarding the entrance to a dungeon, but that they leave, and Woojin is sure that the girls were just making fun of him by telling him false things. But as he walks around the subway station, he thinks that he might have to take a bus after all. But then he spots an entrance that was not guarded. It looked empty and he thinks that he could get down using this. He finds that the path he took was completely empty and dimly lit. There is a gate that is blocking his way to the subway station and it is locked. Woojin thinks that the subway was out of order and the army was there to help with the repairs. But he sees that there is an empty cabin or a watch post near the gate, and he spots some keys on the desk. He thinks that this was the best chance to try and enter the subway. But there really are no running trains and he decides to come out before anyone finds him where he should not be. But as he touches the gate, he gets a mild shock and a system screen pops up in front of him. The screen tells him that he was in a dungeon and could not leave. At that moment, Woojin realizes that even though the girls were making fun of him, they were not lying. He wonders what could have happened in the last 5 years to change this world. When did dungeons start spawning in a peaceful world like Earth? But he cannot do more than think about the changed situation. The system warns him that he could not force his way out of the dungeon without a return stone. Seeing that he has no choice, Woojin decides to go into the dungeon to find the thing called return stone. As he goes inside the station, he feels the presence of monsters around him. He was not sure if that feeling was a real thing or was he imagining it. But he does not have to wait long for a confirmation as a big red wolf jumps on him from behind. Woojin evades its first attack, and as the wolf pounces on him again, he uses a magic spell to restrain it. But then again, he realizes that his magic was not working in this world. If that was the case, he would have to fight it another way. But then he realizes that he had seen the monster somewhere. It was only a drabbit, a weak monster from the world of Alphen where he spent the last 20 years. Woojin thinks that even if he did not have magic, a mere drabbit was no match for him. He picks up a steel pipe from the floor while dodging the attacks of the monster, and then he stabs it, killing it in one hit, satisfied that his physical strength had not suffered much. But that was not the end of the monster attack. Soon, a group of drabbits surround Woojin and he fights and kills them all. He thinks that he could hold drabbits down as long as they did not come in enormous numbers. But if there were stronger monsters in this dungeon, he might be in trouble without access to his magic. But then he gets a notice from the system that he had leveled up. Woojin excitedly checks his stats and is disappointed that he was restored to a level 1 player. All of his stats are quite basic and he thinks that it was unfair. But one thing that relieved him was that his class was still a necromancer. He also had 99 assignable stat points and he could use them to boost his abilities. Woojin thinks that if this was the way to grow stronger, he could benefit from the fact that dungeons and monsters were appearing in Seoul. But then he starts to think about what had happened to him. He was a level 99 necromancer on Alphen, or in other worlds, he had reached the max level. He thinks that the 99 stat points that were given to him were a poor effort to compensate for that, but he would take them. Also, there were 2 skills he had. The system said that the skills were transferred and he could not give them to anyone else using any means. He thinks that these skills must also be something that had to do with his coming back to Earth. The first skill is Combination Box Summon, which can be used to combine pre-existing items into new ones. It could also be used to extract substances out of materials and items. But Woojin is not happy that even his inventory had been reset, and he had nothing there. The second skill is Achievement Shop, where he can buy things using achievement points. There were 3 categories of things to be brought: skill books, equipment, and consumables. Woojin is impressed with this skill as he did not have something like this in Alphen.